right, welcome to the Art of the Card podcast. My name's Joseph Wagar. I'm joined by Chris Jasinski. I'm from Bubblegum and Leather, a buyer's group online, and Chris is affiliated with Big Red Bat Sports Cards, another buyer's group located out of New England. We have been longtime collectors and have enjoyed getting back into the hobby. And after several late night discussions, we decided, hey, why don't we start a podcast? Because beyond just the joy of collecting sports cards, there's the art of the card, and that's what we like to discuss here on this pod. Looking at the artists, designers, and illustrators that collaborate and work together to design the baseball cards, basketball cards, and football cards we all like to collect so much. You can expect us to bring artists, illustrators, and designers onto this show. We'll interview them and ask them about their creative process. What's it like to work for a company like Topps or Upper Deck? What's it like to see your card, your art, collected by thousands of people and adoring fans? We'll also take deep dives into individual sets. We love to talk about 90s basketball inserts, for instance, and we will have several of our episodes dedicated to a deeper dive and more of a design critique and conversation about what decisions were made and why these cards have or have not stood the test of time. We're excited that you joined us. We ask you to please subscribe, follow us on all of our social channels, and without any further ado, let's dive right in.
Awesome, Joe. Thank you. So, as Joe said, we are longtime friends. We went to college together, and part of the reason, I'll just elaborate a little more. Joe is formally trained as a graphic designer. He is super talented, and as he mentioned, with his group Bubblegum and Leather, they call him the chief mad scientist. He's coming up with all kinds of great designs for things. So I'm kind of self-taught by picking brains of people like Joe on graphic design and have a passion for art, always have growing up, and a love of sports. So like many, I was home during the quarantine back in Ohio visiting my parents and discovered my whole collection, perfectly kept, covered. My mom is meticulous with how she keeps things. So had a plastic, sheet over the shelves with everything, and found all of my Kobe Bryant rookies and my Jordan collection, and even the obscure players, not obscure, but like Nomar Garciaparra. I was a kid in Cleveland, Ohio, obsessed with Nomar Garciaparra. I have no idea, but I was. And so it was fun to look back and kind of have those memories, and even, fun things like wrestling cards that I had from the early 90s. So we're going to dive into it, talk a little bit about some of our inspiration today of some of our favorite cards that, in future episodes, we'll do a huge deep dive and hopefully have some of the creators of those cards as guests. Since we've announced it this week, we've had like awesome response from people. I've been getting a lot of messages from new artists that are doing custom artwork on cards, which we have a couple people lined up for interviews. So that'll be coming out this month. And then we've reached out to a few people that are kind of more well-known in the hobby as well. So we're hoping to hear back from them. And they've definitely inspired both Joe and I over the years in our careers and just our love of this hobby. So Joe, do you want to talk about some of, your favorite cards, maybe from, like, you could talk about new stuff or old stuff, some, maybe your top 3 to 5 cards that kind of inspired us to do this?
Absolutely, man. And I'll tell you right off the top, my favorite card is one that I pulled as a kid. I never actually collected Michael Jordan growing up. Because Michael Jordan was always in demand, right? I mean, he's the GOAT. So instead of trying to pay top dollar for the card that all the neighborhood kids wanted, I was a big Sean Kemp collector back in the day.
The Rain Man.
Yeah, throw kind of offsuit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I can get 4 or 5, Sean Kemps for, one, base Jordan, man, I'll make that trade all day.
I just pulled his 90 Fleer out of a pack from an antique mall like a month ago.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was pretty pumped.
Fantastic. No, I have a pretty decent Sean Kemp personal collection, but I distinctly remember this is probably pound for pound the coolest card memory that I have. It was a gravity pack from Meyer in Midwestern Ohio, and got home, opened that sucker up, and lo and behold, it is a Great 8 Michael Jordan card numbered out of 800. So it wasn't anything super crazy. That card's not worth $1 million, but it's by far and away probably the coolest card that I've actually hit on a retail purchase, right? And so that was the one Michael Jordan that I've held on to, much like your introduction, Chris. My family during the quarantine decided to clean out their garages and their basements and send me box after box of all my childhood belongings, carefully packaged, I might add. But in the process of uncovering these things, I found my old baseball card collection, and I found that Michael Jordan card, which was well preserved, easily the biggest pool that I had to date, and that still is true. So that's probably the coolest card that I have. I've actually gone back. That's part of my personal collection now. One of the sets I'm trying to complete is this 96-97 Upper Deck Grade 8 series. There are 8 other athletes. Hakeem Olajuwon, it's Olajuwon, all right. I know Clyde Drexler is in there.
Yeah.
Malone is in there, and Stockton. So you can kind of get an idea. Barkley is in there in the Rockets uniform.
I don't know why I'm not familiar with that site. We'll have to pull up, and when we put the video out, we'll have to share it with everybody of what that set looks like.
Visually, it's not my favorite card, but it is one that I thought was the coolest one because it was numbered, and then it's an easy set to complete because I don't have to buy the most expensive one.
Yep.
The visual card is interesting, and we may want to do one of these deep dives on it. This centering is fascinating. I haven't sent this Jordan in to get graded, but I've looked on eBay at examples, and it's like the card is inset, so your subject is set there in the middle, but there's also a background pattern that this doesn't, to my knowledge, align to anything, and it kind of makes every single card just look like wildly haphazard. So there might be a deeper conversation in there about grading that specific short print. But I love that card, and that's distinctly different from the rest of my list because I really like these illustrated cards. The again, Upper Deck, the 1991 and 1992 checklist series, right? We have those illustrations.
Yep, I just saw a few of those at a show this morning that I went to, and unfortunately they weren't in the best condition, so I didn't pick them up, but they're really cool.
I love the 92 Upper Deck where you also get the arena as part of the illustration, right? Where you get the player, but then also the home court. I think that's such a cool, and of course it's nostalgic now because almost all of those venues, save for maybe Madison Square Garden, have since, gone the way of the Buffalo. And so I really like collecting these illustrated cards, these illustrated checklist cards from the 90s that aren't really worth much. Yep. They are easy to track down. Finding them in good condition is tough. But really enjoy the 91 and 92 Upper Deck checklist cards, and also the 1990 Hoops illustrated cards as well. Those are incredibly clean. It's actually the first card that Andrew, my partner over at Bubblegum and Leather, when we first started talking about starting up, our group back when in 2020 when the quarantine was just starting out. He sent me. He was like, "Hey, dude, I know you love Sean Kemp. I got this great looking card." And it was this Hoops 1990 Hoops illustrated Sean Kemp card that's just absolutely beautiful, and I love it. What's really unique about these cards compared to the Upper Deck checklist is there's absolutely no branding on the front. It is just the artwork and a clean white border. And I got to tell you, it's I've got it kind of behind me on my shelf as one of those cards that I like to display. And it's I think it's just a beautiful representation of the artwork and something that is a little bit ahead of its time, in removing some of that branding, and that masthead and some of those really generic templated elements, and really letting that artwork shine through. So all three of those kind of sets are ones that I like to buy when I see, fire sales or quarter sales and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not anywhere close to completing those sets. It's been a fun journey. And so I love that Jordan card. That Jordan card's fun. But a majority of the cards that I've grown interested in since I've gone back into the hobby are these illustrated cards or these cards that have artwork on them, specifically from that period in the 90s where it was fairly prevalent in those sets.
Are you into any of the the Kabooms or the big illustrated cards or the downtowns now? Do you have any of those? Have you pulled any of those?
Love Kabooms, and I tell you what, I still don't own one. I have not been fortunate enough to hit on one. We did hit on a Kevin De Bruyne kaboom in the Bubblegum and Leather group when we broke a few boxes of the EPL Prism last year when those dropped. Big tool, right? Beautiful card.
Yeah.
That was not is not one something that I pulled on a break, but we did send that in and got it graded. A very very nice card. I came very close to picking up an Alexander Mitrovic kaboom card. He plays for Fulham.
Okay.
That's my soccer team over in London that I like to root for.
Yeah. I know nothing about
Unfortunately,
soccer, so for everybody listening, you'll have to be the soccer guy because I know
well, neither
David
did
Beckham and that's it.
yeah, neither
And
did this kid.
Messi. I know Messi.
You
Yeah.
know, this kid's like, who wants this card? You know, I don't even know who this guy is. You know, first person to send me $20, it's theirs. And I about jumped out of my chair. You know, I mean, I don't usually tweet in all caps, but I was like, yo, brother, you know,
Yeah.
I can
I'll
be,
give
I
you
can be the
40.
guy.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like he never responded because there's about 30 of us that all jumped all over that
Yeah.
post, you know, which was a shame because Mitrovic has had an excellent season this year for Fulham. His stock has definitely risen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was kind of like my window where if I was going to get a Kaboom card, that would have been a great one to have.
Yeah.
Not just for that's a player that I like on a team that I like, but it's a great price point as well.
Yeah, this guy that I had met out here at a local card shop at a trade night that they have once a month, we've now gone to shows together, and he texted me one morning like a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "Dude, I just hit this out of a like hanger pack from like Walmart or something, and it was a Lamar Jackson kaboom." So
It's so
he
cool.
sent it in for grading. He got a 9 on it, and I think he moved it already. He's not a Lamar Jackson fan, so I mean. So our goal with this show too, like I just kind of want to come back to some of the stuff you said because it's very similar to like my story with like your Sean Kemp, I think is for Anthony Hardaway is for me. Like I just picked up like 6 Anthony Hardaways for $6 today at $1 at like, you know, I hate nickel and diming people when they're like, all right, yeah, it's $1. And it's like, yeah, I'll just, you know, I'll give you the $6 for it. So, but like I pick up penny Hardaways whenever I can. One of my favorite, penny cards is the like metal nuts and bolts that was from the 90s, and it's autographed by him, but it hasn't been certified, but I got it on eBay for like $16, and the whole guy's collection he was selling like 50 penny Hardaway cards. So I'm like, for $16 I'm gonna risk it. If it's not real, it was $16. I've spent more on, you know, worse stuff. So that's one of my favorite cards. And then I have an awesome like out of 49 Night Moves National Treasure, like game worn on card auto of Penny. But a lot of his older stuff, like his Finest rookie. And, you know, I love Penny Hardaway. His shoes were iconic. I remember having the shoes growing up. Also the commercials with Lil Penny. Like I have a shelf in my office that I'm like, I kind of just want to find like a Lil Penny doll at like an antique mall and have him sit up there or something. But so that was kind of my Sean. I was a big fan of Sean Kemp too, though. His like kamikaze Reebok shoes, those were fun. So, so going to the illustrations, like you had mentioned, illustration cards that really aren't worth a ton or like overlooked maybe by some people, but the people that do appreciate them, like really love them. I know my friend Paul's also a designer. He loves the checklist, like Jordan cards. He's got them all. And so that's kind of also what inspired me to reach out to you about doing this is because, you know, but for people listening, at the National this past year, Terry Smith, probably my, like, honestly, the inspiration of why I think maybe I know I'm doing this, like why I reached out to you. So I met him at the National. He's sitting there at his booth and he was teamed up with this new app that's coming out. And he had his like prints all set out of like new players like Giannis and LeBron and Luca. And he's doing these like huge prints that he's signing, but he's the designer of the 91 Fleer Pro Visions and 92. And then I think in 93, they wanted to go cheaper. He has said, and like, they kind of went with a different artist, and you can tell the difference in the artwork from like 93 to 91 and 92. So the Pro Visions, I just think they're awesome. Like I remember being a kid and like trying to draw the Michael Jordan flying to space and like tracing them even and stuff. So I've now completed the full basketball set. There's in a PSA 9 or 10. So it's like David Robinson, Jordan, Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing. is that all six? I think I named six, but
Yeah.
and then so now I'm working on the football ones, and the football and baseball are like extremely hard to come by, um, like in good condition, and so I only need three more for the football ones, but like the Bo Jackson one is just like awesome, and he's in his Raiders uniform. It's just like so cool. Or Joe Montana has like this like bionic arm that he's standing there, and it's like a blueprint in the background, and he like made paintings of these things. And so I've emailed him, and I hope that we can get Terry like on this show. I think he would be awesome to go into it. As Joe said, we're going to go into deep dives of these certain cards, but to me, like those Provision cards are extremely like under the radar or undervalued, I think, by like people, because what Terry did so long ago like has set the stage for these like kabooms and downtowns. I just think it's awesome. So um but so that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
well, one quick point about that, Chris, that I think is interesting that folks might not realize about some of these cards. When it comes to these illustrations and the artists, yeah, they're painting, right, a much bigger version of this,
Yep.
by hand. And that might not mean a whole lot to some folks, but what I can tell you is that the amount of detail, right, that's packed into those little cards once they finally print them out, based on the process of the artist creating a much bigger canvas, right? And that's typical. One of my favorite sets this year was the Game Within the Game through Tops, and followed that artist very closely, and the behind the scenes, right, where you can see these big canvases coming to life, and
Hmm.
then eventually you get to hold the actual card, and you can see, like you said, you can tell a difference when they cut corners, right,
Yep.
and when they change artists, and the quality really does shine through on the Provision set, and the detail is incredible, along with the creativity, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like you kind of alluded to with the Montana, like not just creating an illustration, but really a creative concept around each card.
Yeah. So another set, and I don't think I would ever be able to complete it because it's like one per box. He made these bookmarks, and it's just like a bookmark of baseball players. And so for every box, there's one like Provision style card, and they're like taller, narrow cards. And there's like a Griffey one, and there's a Barry Bonds one, and I think the Barry Bonds one, he's on the Giants for that, but he's got like this like scientific like beaker thing with like fluid going into him. But that was like before everything came out with the steroids. But it was just like, so he just thought of like, how are people like almost like superheroes? Like he was looking at this, like, I forgot who it is, has like dynamite on their bat, because they were just like crushing home runs. You know what I mean? So it's like Jordan is flying into outer space, and that was before Space Jam. That wasn't like, he didn't take that concept from Space Jam. Like Space Jam came, when did that come out? 95, 96, or something like that.
Really,
Um,
yes.
so it's just like to see that is, and I think I like the downtowns from a design, like bringing it back to today. I like the downtowns art much more than the kabooms. I know they're both priced a little high. I think kabooms, pull, command a lot more than the downtowns, but it's just kind of creative. Like I know I saw a Joe Burrow one, and there's like Bengals on it, and it's like,
That's
these
sweet.
like illustrated cartoons, or like, if you're in New Orleans on the Saints or the, Pelicans, it's got like jazz and, like all these like kind of Mardi Gras vibes to it. So they've kind of tapped into to some of that a little bit on those, which I really enjoy. But
Oh, I
uh,
got a real big kick out of the collegiate downtown cards, right, where they start to really focus on the college campuses,
mm,
and they kind of carry.
I don't think I've seen those.
So I saw these last year, and I don't know if they've gone back and released them again this year. I'll have to find some examples, but
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
they're basically downtowns and collegiate uniforms, and then a lot of the background artwork, or contextual artwork, would be reflective of the universities. So, say Sam Ellinger, right, would have the UT Tower on it and stuff like that.
Very cool.
And yeah, just incredibly creative. Again, conceptually, it's fun to see that on the card. I believe that Joe Burrow has a fountain, which would be Fountain Square, downtown Cincinnati. Always cool, to have these kind of context clues where
Yep.
if you're from the city or you're a fan of the team, you can probably piece it together. Even if you're not, it's still a beautiful card to look at.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Wow. They're called On Campus.
On campus, that's what it is. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, so it's the same template as downtown, more or less. But yeah, on campus, and I think they're really clever, and I just like all those little extra the little extra context clues, about like no one says here. Of course, it says Justin Fields, Ohio State,
Yep.
but having like having the Buckeye tree there or whatever, right? Having the horseshoe in the background. The stuff like that is always so much fun just to see. I think if you're a fan of that team or that player, it's like a little inside joke, as it were, right?
Yeah.
That kind of rewards you for being a fan of that player or team. It's a very, very cool idea.
Well, I could see, like, as everybody always says, like when um, the pro jersey cards come out, the college ones are pretty much worthless. Like nobody cares about that anymore. And, it's true to some extent. They definitely go down in value when the new product comes out. But these on campus cards are really cool. And I'll pull some up on the screen when we, post this to YouTube. But like, yeah, there's like Trevor Lawrence with like, you know, one of the main buildings on Clemson's campus, and they have the tiger there. So it's pretty cool to see these cards, because I feel like as college diehard fans, people love the campuses that these colleges and the cities and towns that are these colleges are located in, where they play. So I could see those like keeping a value more than just like, hey, here's a Justin Fields and a Ohio State jersey on a card. Like, you know what I mean? It's a little more of a uniqueness to it. It highlights more than just the player.
I'll tell you what, Chris, if they put the Deutz L. Perry Stadium on an on-campus card,
Yeah.
you best believe I'm going to buy it.
Do we get an Urban Meyer on campus card?
Much to Shelley's dismay, I imagine.
Yeah. Shout out to Aaron Burkhardt, who was in my fraternity and played football with Urban Meyer. That would be cool. I'm gonna have to reconnect with him and see if we can get an Aaron Burkhardt on campus card made. I'd be the only one that wants it, probably, but
I'm all over it, man. That'd be great.
yeah. I remember he came to our like fraternity house and was like, "You guys got to come to games, and like we want your support and all this stuff." And now like just seeing where Urban Meyer went after like sitting in the kitchen of our fraternity house telling us to come to games, to then go on to Ohio State and then go to Jacksonville and the fall from grace, I guess, if you will. But
he's had a rough year, but you can't deny it. He's an excellent ball coach, and he's won at everywhere that he went until he went to Jacksonville,
Yeah.
And say what you will, but that's still an impressive record.
Yeah.
It's pretty silly. Again, it's a personal anecdote, right? Having gone to Bowling Green State University. And so to think that Urban Meyer is in any way affiliated, right, with that.
Yeah. It's just like
parcel of land.
Yeah. I think we should start a campaign to get him to go back to Bowling Green.
He might have to do a little bit of career rehabilitation. It might not be a bad place to start.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. So I think this, we're getting here, and we're going to try to keep these episodes to like a half hour, 40 minutes. I mean, really no time limit. If we have an awesome guest on and we're interviewing them and going down, like I could probably pick Terry Smith's brain for an hour. Like, these people, it would be awesome to talk to. So, but for this first intro, we wanted to just kind of introduce ourselves, let you kind of hear some of the things that we like to collect, and a little bit about why we're doing this. And as we get into more and more episodes, we'll be showcasing some of the cards we have in our PC, cards that we're looking to add to our PC, or cards that we're just a fan of. So at the end of the day, we want to just highlight the awesome designers and photographers and graphic designers of the cards, let alone the designs on the cards. So that's really what our focus is. And as I mentioned earlier, we have some cool artists lined up that are kind of taking these new cards and old cards and making them, putting their own spin on it. So super excited to have those interviews come out here in the next couple months. So thank you for listening to our first episode. This is awesome that we have done this, and it's exciting to start the new year off with kind of this new, channel that we're kind of doing together. It's always good to do stuff with friends. And as I said, Joe's been a longtime friend of mine, so happy to be here doing this with him. So thank you, Joe.
Hey, thank you, Chris. This is going to be a lot of fun. Definitely appreciate y'all for jumping in and listening to this first episode with us. I can promise you there will be plenty of discussion about all things card art here in the near future. And again, I'm really excited to talk to these guys from an industrial perspective too, and say, what are the in and outs, right, of getting this from the idea that's in your head, right, to the card that ends up in somebody else's hand. And so we're excited to dive into that. I'm sure we'll get a wide variety of answers as we talk to a wide variety of artists that we have scheduled. So we really do hope that you'll come back and listen to us again, and certainly appreciate you tuning in today.